watch as Zeba and Uzma record their podcast, see their reactions, and find out for yourself what all the buzz is about.
Oh, assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Mommyingwhilemuslim. This is Uzma Jaffrey, drinking her coffee.
I know we can drink, and this is Zeba behind a cloak and dagger of a picture I see that I took. Unfortunately, I'm not camera ready today, girl.
It's a beautiful picture.
I am. Thank you. I figure that looks better than what I'm looking like right now. Well,
tell us about your week, how you're feeling, and the story behind the picture.
Okay, so the story behind the picture is I have thyroid disease. You know, I have tumors on my thyroid, which I've been unfortunately battling for a while. And I had an MRI done in February before all this COVID stuff happened. And despite the increase of my medication, they're like, they're not going down as much as we'd like them to go down. So let's go ahead and schedule biopsy. And of course, it was scheduled for the Monday after all COVID things went down. So if all procedures, everything got canceled, didn't think about it. Then early last week, they were like, okay, we're opening up for selective things. You were one of the first people that we canceled. Can we just go ahead and fit you in? And honestly, just didn't even think about it. Didn't realize the recovery and the fact that I bruise and swell so easily, hence never going to do plastic surgery, ladies, because I'll be recovering from that for months and months, and kind of squeezed it in without letting people know, so this is, if my mom is watching, sorry, didn't tell them. It was just kind of a last minute thing. And so the recovery has been a little bit slow because I know. So they definitely had to go a little bit deeper into one to get because it was bigger than they expected. So inshallah, everything's fine. I'm sure we'll find out later this week. But I sent Uzma a picture this morning and I'm like, this is what I look like right now in my recovery process. And she's like, can you please find a picture to put up? No, I'm kidding. She was like, oh, you are really pretty swollen. So can we put a picture up? Oh my God. So that's where I'm at right now. But alhamdulillah, everything's fine. I'm definitely scary. I decided to wear hijab for the first time because my kids were so scared of my face and my bandages that I wore hijab all birthday weekend to cover my bandages. So I definitely was walking in your shoes a little bit. But yeah, alhamdulillah, everything was fine. It was my birthday this past weekend. So of course, it's always so nice to get older. Yay! We're definitely giving away a beautiful purse for our Mommyingwhilemuslim listeners. I think we're going to post it a little bit later on social media today, but that is pretty much where I'm at, hence the, picture. So no worries, everybody. I'm fine, inshallah, but I definitely was not camera ready today. But how was your weekend? How's Rania? Like, what are you doing now? Because I hear you see some amazing pictures on social media, girl, with all that yummy food that you're not sending me.
Yeah. So because I can't do anything for my fellow brothers and sisters right now, just given that Rania is on immunosuppressive drugs for her encephalitis, I can't go out into public unless it's absolutely necessary. So at work, I wear a mask, and that's pretty good. If I was out on the streets, I would also be wearing a mask. But when you multiply, how many people are taken to the streets right now, it puts my family at increased risk. So I really can't do anything. So the way that I'm working out my stress, okay, just hold on to your hijabs, everybody. I'm cooking like me. I don't understand who this person is in my house. And neither do my kids.
I know.
Like,
you're like becoming Martha Stewart.
Dessert? What? I'm basically, yeah. But it's because of the recommendation you made for watching It's Time to Eat on Netflix with Nadia Hussein.
Yes.
And it's great because it showed up on the FYI org. They sent out some emails to parents recommending the top 150 educational series to watch on Netflix so that, the kids don't have summer slump any more than they've had the COVID slump from school. So Nadia's show is on there, which is great. And the representation is really great because my kids are like, Ummi,
It's
Is she
awesome.
Muslim? Because she visits like places. If for those who don't know, she goes to some of these factories that make the ingredients that she cooks with. And so if she finds out that something is like alcohol based, she's like, wait a minute, I don't drink alcohol. Explain this to me. Or she'll say, I only eat halal. So this is why this is important. So I'm like, oh my God, she's doing what she loves and she's giving such incredible dawah. Go girl. Like I will learn to cook everything that you tell me to learn how to cook at this point. So she's my inspiration and she's helping me work through, some troubling feelings that I'm having. So I love it.
Well, I love that. I actually made her egg tortilla with a low carb tortilla for one of our, with like a roll up. It was so
Oh
good.
my God, it's
So good.
delicious.
So it's
Yeah,
a quick
so
dinner.
delicious.
Okay, we need to stop talking about food post a Ramadan. Here we are just like talking about food up a storm. But I
What
I
can we
I
eat all day
know,
long?
like I have a feeling. Exactly, eat all day long. I have to remind myself to eat right now, by the way. It's like 3 o'clock and I'm like, oh my God, I can't eat lunch. Like, what am I doing? So I'm having to get back into that habit of eating like a normal person. But we obviously have a lot to talk about before we bring our guest on. The world right now is in a very crazy place. You alluded to it a little bit earlier. What is our soapbox for today, Miss Uzma?
Our soapbox today is coming from a personal place. So, in no way, shape, or form is what I'm about to say the viewpoint of Mommyingwhilemuslim or any other organization that I'm affiliated with. It is my personal view. So I am reading, a lot of posts from people that I love, people that I know, people that I respect about these looters are so lawless and this is not how you protest and this is not riots are not the right way. Bring out the curfew. Of course, we didn't have a curfew the entire pandemic that I can think of in any given state, even though all
Yeah.
of Europe was doing it, and China. No, no, that is fascist. No, no, that is draconian. We don't do things like that. But then when colored bodies hit the street demanding justice, suddenly let's institute a curfew. When people are looting high-end stores with their white bodies, by the way, if you watch the camera footage, because some of these idiots are stupid enough to post it on social media. When you watch these white bodies looting, suddenly let's put a curfew on because these crazy people are coming to loot and rape us. Several groups that I'm on, there are fake accounts that have been started in the last week saying, oh, be careful, my police relative has told us that black people are coming and they've posted this and they're saying they're going to come to our houses and rape our women and steal our children. I mean, it is so 1880s, like 1850s Wild West BS, basically. Um, Saying that the worst thing that you can imagine is going to happen to your families because these black people have suddenly gone nuts, because only black people go nuts. It's never a white supremacist with a gun, right? So I worked so hard when I came to this country and blah, 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 and looting is not the way to do it. That hurts my business. Guess what? Your business can be replaced. It's fully insured, but black lives can be replaced. One been irreparably killed on the street, on cameras. So I want people who are coming from that place of looking down on looting to check your own privilege. I'm having to check my privilege over and over again. I get to stay home and cope and make great recipes with anything that I want because I have a Netflix subscription in a nice house, in a nice kitchen, in a safe place. Millions of black people in America for generations have never had that. And so if they are actually the ones that are going into a high-end store and stealing a couple of bags, good. They deserve it because reparations have never been made. Peaceful protests were never accepted. Nothing ever happened. We always said bring Cap back when he took a knee on the field and nobody listened. So now this is what's going to happen. You can call it violent. I just call it very loud protesting. And I don't think we, as non-Black people of color, get to tell Black people what tactics they can use to protest, what tactics they can use to rebel. That is their entitlement, what they use. We don't get to pass a judgment on it. We can just decide, what are we comfortable doing? Is it speaking? Is it writing? Is it marching? Is it, is it looting? If that's what we want to do, I mean, there's going to be repercussions, but you choose your tactic, You just don't get to get up on a box and say that's wrong because they need to pull themselves up by the bootstraps, because institutionally, bootstraps were never given to them. So that is the soapbox for today. We want you to check your privilege. We want to get y'all educated on what is it that Black people want. And we've on our social medias, we've cited several Black voices that we want you to listen to, because Zeba and I are not qualified to tell you how Black people feel. That's not what's going to happen. So educate yourself, empower yourself and your Black brothers and sisters with this information, and then listen. Shut up and listen to what the Black voices in our communities are saying. We don't get to dictate and we don't get to judge. We get to listen, and then we get to decide what are the tactics that we're going to use to help our brothers and sisters. Soapbox for today, everybody.
So I don't even know how to follow that impassioned speech.
I was
So
trying
I'm
not
going
to
to let
sound
it
like a
stay
reading,
right there. I'm going to
well, why
let
don't
it
you talk about how
stay
we
right
planned this
there.
entire
And I
month?
definitely, I know, yeah, exactly. We definitely plan this entire month about the point of view, different types of point of view. And speaking of, checking our own privilege, being Sunni Muslims, or like I didn't realize I was Sunni, by the way, until I was in college and somebody told me I was. But that having been that having been said, like, we are Sunni Muslims, also coming from a place of privilege within the subset of Muslim America, and part of what we wanted to do is bring other voices within our own communities to come out. So this is a great segue to come and introduce our lovely host. I feel like I know her so well now. We're joined today by Farheen Reza, producer and host of the podcast Musings of a Modern Muslim. She raises awareness on issues that are important to women, family, and living your best life. And she actually helps her viewers and listeners confront cultural stigmas while bringing hope and healing to all. And she has the best professional podcasting room that I've ever seen. And I'm so excited to have Farheen on the show today. And thank you and welcome to Mommyingwhilemuslim.
Assalamualaikum,
Thank you, Zeba.
Farheen.
Thank you, Uzma, for having me. Welcome, Salam. How are you guys doing? Thank you again for having me. And that is a really hard segue. I don't know how Zeba just did that because
I
I was like,
know. I was like, I don't even know
snapping
how
my
to
fingers and
follow
like,
that,
clap, go,
girl.
girl.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like,
No,
I
so
can't
my
even
Just like,
follow
point
make
that,
was,
so
a.
I'm not going to try.
I'm sorry.
That
I
was
was trying
amazing.
to tone it down, but like my whole point was, months ago, Zeba and I put this month together of Muslim identity, and we recognize
Mm-hmm.
that there are voices in our community, Shia, Black, LGBTQ, all kinds of things that nobody wants to talk about and nobody wants to identify with as still being Muslim,
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and I'm just so glad that we start this month with you, because you have become such a good friend to us right now. And like we've all gotten so tight over
Aw.
the last few months. We just, I'm glad that we started it a little bit gentler than what's happening
Mhm.
on the national scape right now. But that's going to come in a couple of weeks because, again,
Yeah.
we did our due diligence and recognized that these were conversations that were not being had. And you, as somebody who does that on the regular on your show, I hope you can appreciate that we tried and you were one of our inspirations to do that.
Aw, I appreciate that. And you know what? I think everyone has a voice. You just have to kind of guide it to the right place. If you guys met me, let's say 15 years ago, in my community, in my little Muslim community and family community, I was the shy one. I never spoke up. I have
Oh,
remembered spending like dinner parties that my family, like my immediate family would be having. I'd spend in the foyer because I was so shy that I wouldn't even go into the house. I was like, nope, 3 hours, I'm good right here.
Wow.
So when my family sees me now, they're like, what the heck happened to you? What happened?
good for
This
you.
flip. Like you went to Texas and you just like, yeah, I'm in Texas, y'all. Go, go,
That's
go.
what
It
Texas
is
does.
that
We're loud
Texan
and
in
proud.
both of you guys. Exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, it's the Texan in both of you girls. Us Chicago people
Mm-hmm.
cannot keep up. So we just kind of sit in the sidelines and be like, you all take that over. Okay. No, I definitely appreciate it. And like I said, we're big fans of your podcast as well. So do you want to give us a little bit, our listeners, a little bit of an insight as to what your podcast specifically talks about? And we can start talking about your mom
Sure.
journey.
Sure. Um, Basically, my podcast, it was a passion project based on the idea that I do radio here in Dallas, which is for, standard Southeast Asian Desi radio. And the topics that, because of FCC and all those guidelines that are in place, there's things you can't talk about. And so from that, I kind of, honed my talking skills. And I was like, I think I can do better if I did something on my own. And then I thought about for a good year I spent thinking, like, what can I talk about? What would people find interesting? And I asked a few people, non Muslims. I was like, what would you be interested in? And it came up many times that we just want to know more about you. Like, we see you, Farheen, as a Muslim, and when we see other Muslims, we're like, wait, but Farheen's not like that. So, how are Muslims really like? And you'd think that's something that's, you know, being covered pretty well across the board, but I think there's still that comfort level where people feel if they can approach someone. Over here in Dallas, I'm part of this group called Daughters of Abraham. I believe it's a national organization now, but it started off post 9/11, where a Jewish, a Christian, and a Muslim woman got together and they said that, hey, let's discuss how we are similar, how we are different, yet we can still be friends and get along. So I've been part of that for since I moved to Texas about 6 years ago. And that place has taught me that how similar we are. And that kind of became this, I became a person for a lot of people in that group that I was the only Shia Muslim, sometimes the only Muslim in the room. And I really think in our communities, the thing missing is that we don't reach across lines. We have so much trouble within ourselves and then getting to the other side to other people that I was like, you know what, let me focus with that on my podcast. Talk about insight into the Muslim experience, what we do, how we pray, how we're just regular people. And then I interview just regular Muslim people who are doing amazing things in their own fields and how they're contributing to the American society. We've been here forever, y'all. We're here to stay. Just deal with it now.
No, that's so great.
That's a good summary of what
I'm
you
actually
do.
a part of
And
the
I
Daughters of Abraham here in DC, and it's an amazing organization specifically for that. So, kudos to you for going and reaching across the lines. I definitely appreciate that.
I love that organization. I think if anyone, and they meet so, on a schedule once a month, and it's only 2 hours once a month.
Hmm.
I mean, really, anyone should be able to go to one of their meetings. And now, of course, because of COVID, everyone's doing virtual meetings, and I've noticed with the virtual things, you're seeing a lot more people, especially in Ramadan, where our masjids were doing things online. You could see that the number of people tuning in on Facebook Live or on YouTube was 100, 200. And if you think that that's one family watching with, let's say, average 3 to 4 people, that's a lot of people just sitting there and listening to programs and attending things. So, yeah, I think if anyone can go, please find a local chapter. If there is none, make a local chapter. They'll be happy to do
That's a
it.
great idea.
kind of like you did when you noticed that there was a deficiency in the female voice and the female perspective. It wasn't there, so you created it. That's what moms do. We love it.
Thank you. We that's what we do. You
So
do
tell
what you
us
gotta
about your
do. I
mom
made a whole
journey.
studio. Look at this. My mom journey. My mom. My actual mother or my journey as a mother? My journey as a mother was interesting because I had a lot of preconceived notions from my own mom, which I think all of us do get because that's just, even if we, don't like it at that point, moms are the ones we idolize. I still, at the
Hmm.
age of 36, get yelled at by mom almost every day. You didn't do this right, didn't do that right.
Oh,
And I was like,
wow.
she keeps me in check completely forever. But when I became a mother the first time, the thing that still clicks for me that my mom said when I was going to deliver my oldest, and she was like, when you leave the hospital, when you're done and you have that baby and you leave, the world will change. Suddenly, your vision, and of course she said all this in Urdu, but she was like, it will just change. You will walk out those doors and be a changed person. Your viewpoints of the world will change. Everything in the world will have a different meaning. Every relationship will change, and it'll just be all new. It'll be a sense of newness. You'll feel like you're reborn. And that stuck with me through all life, everything, not just children, but with anything I do, I think of that everything is new, everything is different. And really, yeah, when I walked out of that hospital with the baby, I was like, oh my God, everything's dangerous, everything's scary. It's all so bright and magical suddenly all over again. And it was amazing. And I'm a mom to three boys, so I'm horrendously, horribly outnumbered in my house. Outnumbered. We don't have enough estrogen in this place. We have too much testosterone.
You need to get a bunch
I
of
need
girl
a
cats.
female cat. Yes, basically, and just like bring like cats in heat, like annoyed cats, female cats, so that we can balance
I'm sure the
it
guys
out
will really
in this
appreciate that.
house. Squealing cats, like that's what we need because but as a mom to boys only, I really feel like the sense of softness is missing in me. And I'm a girly girl. I was like a princess loving girly girl, dresses, berets. I loved being dressed up when I was a kid. My mom was like, "You would have been a perfect girl mom," and yet I'm a boy mom. So I find that myself slowly I've become a little bit more tougher and rougher. I'm a rough around the edges, whereas I used to be very a softy softy. And I see my second son, he's very similar to how I was before. He's soft and very, considerate and all those cutie, lovey dovey things. But I really think that I'm kind of missing that where I would like that softness back. And so I always think about, should I just have another baby or should I just adopt a baby girl and be like, be done with it and get my softness back? Because I really feel like I'm a rough person. It's not good.
My
Do you
my
think
my,
it's
my
becoming a mom
advice
of
to you,
boys
girl,
that
is
made you?
sorry, we
What
always
was
have the
that?
lag.
Go
We
ahead,
always have
Zeba.
the lag. I was going to say, like,
Yeah, we
if
have
we have
an
if, like
audio lag.
when you I'll just say one thing. If you are questioning having another child, it means you need to have another child, girl. That's really what
Mm-hmm.
anybody
Tell my
asks me. I'm
husband
like,
that.
if you feel like somebody is missing in your life, then that means somebody is missing in your life. Like I fundamentally believe
Mm-hmm.
that
Yes,
with
yes, yes, I
100%
do
of
too.
my heart.
I'm gonna record that part and tell my husband, like, look, Zeba said I have to have another baby,
Yeah,
so let's
to
go. No, but you know what?
replay it.
To
And
piggy,
honestly, once you go to 3, you might as well have 4, 5, 6, 7, right?
I
Like I feel
know,
like 3
right?
is that
It doesn't
crazy
make a
number.
difference. Yeah,
It
it doesn't
doesn't
make
make a
any
You're
difference
difference
after
because
outnumbered
you know what?
anyway.
3.
No, no.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I'm one of four, and my husband is one of four. So we're like, look, we just have to keep up the family dynamics, okay? But you know what I do
And
believe?
everybody
I'm
who
Yeah.
gonna
comes on our show
piggyback on that
apparently
idea.
has 4 kids too, so you have to.
Yes, it's the 4-kid
Okay.
curse. So you come on the show, then all of a sudden you're going to have 4
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
kids or 5 or 6
Now,
Yes,
yes,
so
perfect.
that we've had a couple
Oh,
hopefully
six.
oh,
we'll be
no, no.
your stimulus.
Literally, we have to go back to
No,
our
no,
February
but what I
episodes
do
for that,
firmly
but we're going to
believe
leave that there.
but what I do believe is that if there is something in life that you kind of feel that you will regret later, then just do it now. And I told my husband like
I
point
agree.
blank, I was like, if we don't have that fourth baby, I'm 100% sure. Not now, maybe not in 15 years, maybe in 20 years, maybe in 25 years. I'll be like, I wish we had that. My mom does that. My mom has four, and she now, when my youngest brother is 28, she's like, you know what? I really wish I had more kids. And I was like, seriously,
I
mom? She's
agree.
like, no,
Oh
in
my
hindsight, I
God.
really wish I should have had 5, 6 kids. And I would have wanted more girls so I can get them married. And I was like, you're weird.
That was a miserable experience for my mom getting girls married. I don't know why your mom wanted to do that again.
Oh, no.
Mine, mine too. I was like, mom, don't you
Remind
remember
her how
like
painful
finding,
that was the
you
first
know,
time.
yeah. I was like, why would you? But she's like, no, I wish I had more kids. I was like, I was there with you until that part. And then the rest, I just lost you. Like, what? Where were you going?
Yeah, you lost me there, Mom.
So we brought you
So
on the
let's
show
talk
today
about the
because
sticky stuff.
yes, exactly. I was like, let's get right into this.
Meat and bones. Let's go.
Yep. Go, Zeba.
No, I was just going to say, like, I'm one of those, and poor Uzma knows this, I am very uneducated where these types of things are concerned because I really had my first conversation with somebody, I still remember it, I was in college. When somebody comes up to me, and my maiden name was Hussein, and obviously my married name is Hassan. So,
Mm.
two names that nobody knows what they are, right? And this guy comes up to me and he was like, so are you Shia or Sunni? And I remember looking at him and like, what the heck are you talking about? Like, I had no clue. And not that my parents didn't talk about it. It really wasn't anything that it was a day-to-day conversation thing for us, to be very, very honest with you. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that's a good thing or is a bad thing at all. I just was so ill-informed because I had no clue that there was ever really a difference. So first of all, I need to know what is the difference for the people like me that are Muslim that have never really had any exposure to this. So why don't you tell our audience a little bit of what the difference between Shia and Sunni actually is?
That's a nice heavy question. Let's get right into it.
That's a very
Yes.
heavy
Literally the
question.
meat and potatoes of. And then the funny thing is, I think when me and Uzma were talking a few months ago, Uzma's last name is a very commonly Shia name, and then now Hassan and Hussein. I'm like, these guys are you're all Shia or not? Like, what is this? You got all the names.
This is why our dads were
Exactly.
best friends. Because they were both both of them were assumed to be Shia when they were younger, and they were like, "No, we're
Yes.
Sunni," so it was just they got it from both ends.
And then there's an answer to that as well because I'll get into that part later. But the difference the very simple explanation without offending anyone I can come up with is that during the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, when our belief in the Shia faith is that he wanted Ali to be his successor, and history went the other way. So, I mean, I know Ali eventually became the caliph. He got the caliphate, but our belief is that the Prophet wanted Ali right after because it was his son-in-law as well. So, married to his only child, and it was like, okay, well, that's what we believe. And after that, uh, his lineage technically still continues, wherein all his the Prophet's daughters' sons, which were Hassan and Hussein, who got the imamat after Ali. And we believe in this concept of imamat, where I know in a lot of the Sunni faith, you think, well, imam is someone who is at the mosque. Well, in ours, the imam is someone who has been given divine knowledge after the prophet. They're not prophets, and they're not above Prophet Muhammad at all. I know that's a big misconception. People assume they're like, well, don't you worship Ali and everything? It was like, no, 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 we don't. They're just basically they got divine knowledge after the prophet, but they are not. He's not a prophet. He is, right below the prophet. But they are to be looked up to. And in ours, we have 12 imams that followed. So it was Imam Ali was the first, and then his sons Hassan and Hussein got it, and then after them their children, and the lineage followed for 12. And every single imam died of either being no one died of natural causes. That makes it easier to explain. Like, no one died naturally. They were all either poisoned or killed. And so then in our belief is that the 12th imam, the Mahdi, is he was alive, 800, 900 years ago. He was around the earth walking. And then because this idea that he would get killed as well, he was put into occultation. That's the actual word, occultation, by God, by Allah, and kept hidden. So he's around, but he's hidden. But we don't worship him. I want to stress that because a lot of people assume that Shias worship other than Allah, or look up to, or we give prophethood to others than Prophet Muhammad. That's not true at all. So the Mahdi is in occultation, and he's supposed to return on the Day of Judgment along with Jesus. So come back together. They're homies. They're gonna, get the prayers going. World will end, or come back, or whatever at that point. But that's the basic difference. And I'm sure you guys have heard that the first month in the Islamic calendar is Muharram, of course. And you can see that on the 10th
Yeah.
of Muharram, or up until, first to the 10th of Muharram, there's a month. It starts off with mourning for us Shias, because on the 10th of Muharram, 1400 years ago, Imam Hussein, who was third in line after Imam Ali, then his son Hassan, who had already passed away, then Imam Hussein, he was martyred on the fields of Karbala in Iraq, along with 72 companions who were mostly women and children. So it wasn't like a battle, like a free-for-all, like Ertugrul style battle. It was pretty bad. It was 10,000 against about 1,000 people. So that was, odds aren't matching here. And him and his family were martyred. And it honestly, if you look at, just even if you're not Shia, if you just read those things, it gives you goosebumps. I've given tours at our mosque to Sunnis as well as non-Muslims, and I've induced people into crying because they're like, "Oh my God, that just sounds horrible. Like, how could you do that to someone?" Forget who he was or what reasons behind it, but just a human, on a human level. I mean, if I was to tell you that his 6 month old son was martyred with an arrow through his neck, I'm sure that gives you goosebumps. And so those months are mourning for us because we're thinking of his sacrifice, and he stood up to oppression and tyranny of that time, and he said, "No, this is not the right way. I refuse to give you." At that time, it was Muawiyah. "I refuse to bend the knee to you, so I'm going to go down being known as someone who stood up against tyranny." So even now, at protests and what actually is happening in the world today, a lot of us are quoting Imam Hussein. One of his most famous one, which I was going to share later on my page, was those who are silent when others are oppressed are guilty of oppression themselves. And this he said 1400 years ago. And it's like, well,
100%.
does not that not like totally make sense today? Like right now, exactly what he said then. And so that's why the
Mhm.
months of Muharram are spent in mourning for us, Muharram and Safar. And then on the 9th of and 40 days after, so usually that falls on 20th of Safar, we Shias are in mourning, and we try not to have any weddings or happy events or anything fun, quote unquote fun, happening. And then you'll notice a lot of us are wearing more muted colors because it's supposed, because we can all trace back our lineage to the family. So it's like, well, what if your father died today? How would you feel? How would you dress? What if you're and the beautiful thing in the story of Karbala is that because the varied ages of people who were martyred there, you can connect that to family here. So when my 17-year-old cousin was killed in a car accident, a really horrible car accident, almost 20 years ago, we could relate back and draw patience that, look, our imam went through this, and he left a message. So why can't I? If I'm such a follower, I should be able to draw strength from him. And his 18-year-old son was martyred. And then I know, like a lot of women, myself included, when I went through a miscarriage, I drew strength from, like, well, his 6 month old baby was martyred. So you draw strength from their strength. And that's how we connect to them yearly. And it's a refresher because every year we go into this mourning mode, and it gives you, I think it, along with Ramadan, because Ramadan does that same thing. It, refreshes your deen. I think for us Shias, we get it twice a year because we get Ramadan and then we get this time of year where it's like, okay, you have to realize that we are someone who can stand up to tyranny. We can still mourn. We should draw strength from them, and just to use them as a guiding light of how to behave in this world. That is all.
I love the reminder of the massacre at Karbala, even though how can you love a reminder of a massacre? But not that I love the massacre, but that story, obviously, we share that history as mainstream Sunnis too. And,
Mm-hmm.
you're right. It's just horrible events took place, and we all mourn the loss of, our great leaders of the time. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, Hassan and Hussein, who the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, loved so much, and there's so many hadiths about it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for laying the groundwork, first of all, on what the fundamental differences are. We know that we're not going to discuss all of them right now. That's not, I don't think any of us
No.
has license, even you, Faheen,
That'll
to talk
take
about all of it.
days.
It's just too expensive.
No, no, and I wouldn't,
Exactly.
and I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to talk. Then I would bring like a Molana, and I'll be like, get someone more. I'm
No.
gonna side with Zeba on this. I have
Yeah.
some education, but not that much, and I would be like, nope, not touching that
Yeah.
one with the 20-foot pole at this
Yeah.
point. No, but the one
Exactly.
change I've definitely noticed, and I'm happy you said that. You still commemorate it. What I've noticed in the past 7, 8 years, it's pretty new, is suddenly these whole on first of Muharram, you'll see a lot of, oh, happy Islamic New Year, happy New Year, and I'm like, when did that start? Because uh,
Hmm.
it's been classically known that our year starts with a morning. It's not a happy time. So I mean, as a Shia person, that gets me kind of annoyed when I see that, and I'm like, well, I mean,
Oh.
come on. I mean, you know what a lot of us are thinking and doing, so can we not do that?
Mhm.
And like, I'm also totally against that idea. Like, in a lot of our gatherings, people will sit and start doing la'anat of, sahaba that they don't agree with, and I'm like, well, can't do that either, guys, because
Oh.
that's not gonna help our cause as well. So let's not do any
Mhm.
of that, please. Let's yeah, definitely the people who martyred this family and did that with a definite, cause that yes, we are going to kill this family and their children and everything. Sure, give them la'anat, but don't give it to everyone in the world. And that's where I usually differ with a lot of Shias, and I get in trouble
Yeah.
for that. So yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So now that you've laid that groundwork, for those of us who were born and raised in this country, and for our kids, I think, like Zeba's experience of learning for the first time what she was, or having to have that conversation with the parents, like, what am I? All of us have had to do that. Like, what school of thought do we belong to? What kind of,
Hmm.
practice are we? What sect are we? Like, we've all had these conversations with our parents because we just don't know. So I want to talk about a little bit about that baggage that our parents had, because I don't know what experiences your family had in the back home countries. My dad would
Hmm.
talk about how in India, where he was born and raised, Shia, Sunni, there was a lot of intermarriages. Like when you're talking about there was like some festival, and I think it was a Shia festival, but it was like they would make the rice pudding and everybody would go to those houses, even though there were Shia houses, to have the rice pudding and back and forth. So there was no weirdness except during the times of mourning when the Shia would perform the matam, and then the Sunnis would be like, yeah, we're not going to do that because that looks painful, but when you guys have fun, we want to totally jump in. So, there was that. And
No,
then
but
now
can
we
we
know that
explain to
during
people, Uzma, not to interrupt you, but
Oh,
what
go ahead.
is matam? So you're using terms and phrases for somebody like myself that we don't understand. So what is a matam? So
Yeah,
you just said matam.
I'm
Can you
gonna let
explain what
Fahim
that is?
define
Or
that.
who is good somebody?
Yeah,
Okay,
Fahim's gonna
perfect. Because
define
I'd
that in a
like to
Okay.
know
second.
what
Yeah,
that is.
she's the expert
Okay.
on that.
Perfect. Yeah, I didn't
All
mean
right.
to interrupt.
Okay. And you know what? This is a good thing because I want to, get rid of some misconceptions about Matam as well. So Zeba, when the Imam was martyred and his family was martyred, they didn't kill the women. They took their hijabs off, which in that time, for someone to be in that household to have your hijab snatched off and be paraded down the street was, akin to being paraded naked. So his sister, so Imam Hussein's sister, Bibi Zainab, was saw the whole thing, and she was of course older, so she saw all the people get martyred, her own children, and all the events that carried out. She saw it from a hill that they still have in Iraq, that in Karbala, where they've marked it as the hill of Zainab. She watched everything unfold from there. And so when they were taken to Sham, which is, I believe, modern day Syria, they were taken there into
Hmm.
captivity. And in captivity, she started relating the story because people would come up to her and the people who were in the jail. So you know how jail cells had like little like windows or something like underground and everything. So they would come up and they like tell us what happened, and then she would relate the whole event over and over. So like she was the initial oral reciter, and she was known to be very eloquent, extremely eloquent, like her father, Ali, who was supposed to, his book is called The Peak of Eloquence, which is translated all over. It's a great book. And so she was an extremely well spoken, well versed, and eloquent woman. And she even told the whole story over and over with full details. And of course, in her grief, whenever she would relate this story that then they beheaded my brother and they did this really extreme stuff, she would start beating her chest, and it would be like oh like this hand movement back and forth, like the Pledge of Allegiance, but like moving your hand back and forth, and she would be so distraught. And that's a lot of Shias have taken that as a sign of like this is my outward way of mourning, that I'm going to beat my chest.
Show of mourning.
There has definitely been a lot of, yes, it's a show of mourning that people, we cry, we have people cry a lot, people do beat their chests, but there is this aspect that's been added over the years. This was not so back in that time, where people do matam on fire. I've seen people do matam with knives, and um, and I don't like that because now if you look up Ashura, the day that all this happened on Google, if you Google that right now, you don't see the Imam story or anything about the gatherings. You see only blood because this is what people have made it. And a lot of the Ayatollahs alive now have spoken against it. They're like, we don't recommend doing anything that brings a bad image to the faith. So stop it. But, people are people. They just choose to do whatever they want. So like in my family, it was looked down upon to do the it's called zan all times. Blood is not clean, so that just kind of goes against the idea of what religion tells you to do. So like my family never promoted it. My personal, like my nuclear family never promoted. Luckily, my husband and his family don't promote it. So if you see us mourning, it'll just be beating the chest, and it's a show of grief. It's not meant to be, you know, um, anything more than that. That I am grieving, and this is, and
Injurious.
you'll see that even if you weren't Shia or anything. Yeah, it's just even if you see anyone mourning right now anywhere, people do tend to hit themselves or beat themselves, and it's a show that I am distraught and I am sad. So that's all it is.
So just kind of going back to what my question was, back in our back home countries, our parents grew up with this intermixing of
Mm-hmm.
Shia Sunni that didn't seem problematic. Then, as they migrated over and we were born and raised here and growing up, we would see during Muharram or hear about in Muharram Shias and Sunnis killing each other. And now we have what's happening, the war in
Mm.
Syria. So can you speak to being Sunni or Shia now in the United States, like the three of us?
Yeah.
What are the advantages and disadvantages of the way our parents grew up and the way we're growing up? I don't know if that
Well, in
connects. Are
yeah,
you able?
yeah, no, I can, yeah. Well, when we immigrated to the U.S., the first thing was we didn't care who it was, as long as they kind of spoke, Urdu, Hindi. It was like, okay, we can connect. So my parents, we had Hindu friends. We still have a lot of Sunni friends. Like my mom still has a lot of Sunni friends. I think the divisions we started noticing them was when a lot of the youth started, kind of finding their own way and trying to figure out what was going on. Like our parents, they didn't care. They were like, we're just happy that, oh, you drink chai and have biryani, we're good. We're friends for life. That's it. It doesn't matter what you are. But with the
Universal language of biryani.
yes, yes, and it was like, yeah, biryani is the brings everyone together. But I think when we started seeing the youth, like people in our age group, trying to find their own reasons for practicing, at that time I think there was a lot of preachers. I don't know if they were influenced by other countries or other teachings. This sense of, you know not before, would like it would just be that, oh, Shias are different, they do different things, and that was it. Now it's like, oh no, they are disbelievers. They are, what's that term that they use now, rafidis, and they need to be killed. And it's like, well, what what is going on? Like what just happened? And we noticed that people who were like, we have friends of my parents have friends, and us, the kids used to be friends, and the kids are no longer friends because the Sunni kids
Oh,
chose that we were untouchable or we were horrible. So even though the parents still kind of meet and
Mm-mm.
mingle, the kids choose not to, and they're like, no, no, you guys are something else. And it's like, well, but we grew up together. What happened? What made you change your mind? And I mean, luckily, I don't see a lot of it, but when an example does come up, it does kind of hit you hard. Like, wait a minute, guys, we're all in the same boat. We're all like, brown people living in America. Let's just stay together in our brownness and be happy.
so hear you saying, Farheen, is that we already have so many divisions in this country to subdivide in our culture is a huge disadvantage.
Yeah, and I'm glad
Yeah.
you pointed out that because your family's from Hyderabad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know a lot of families in Hyderabad, they did have a lot of this intermixing where Shias and Sunnis married each other, and it was never a problem. I think the problem slowly that has become normalize is that because a lot of people are practicing, you have these situations where even if I know someone right now who was a Shia girl, she fell in love with a Sunni guy, and they got married. The guy's parents didn't attend the wedding because they were like, "Well, you're marrying a Shia. You're good as dead to us." And it's like, well, that's not nice either. I mean, they refused to come. They were like, "No, we're not even going to be a part of this at all,
Hmm.
ever." Forget it. And I've seen vice versa. I've seen because that inherent hate is being inbuilt in the younger generation that I think they're having more trouble seeing beyond that. So if you're in any way, shape, a
Hmm.
practicing Shia, it becomes important to you that you kind of stick to a Shia. Doesn't mean you don't like anyone else, but it's like, well, if I have this love for the house of the Prophet, and then my spouse has hate for them, it becomes conflict. And I think a lot of these things people need to. I really really am for. If you are going to be making a decision that might cause waves, I really think you need to sit down with both a Sunni imam and a Shia Molana and have like pre-wedding counseling done. Like seriously, just
Oh,
talk it through and
100%.
be like,
Bro,
would you be okay
you
with
need
with this if
pre-wedding counseling regardless of what sect you are.
yes you
That's my
do.
big
Oh
I
god.
already told
True.
my kids before they get married. You guys are getting
Yes,
Premarital
yes.
premarital
counseling.
counseling and they're like, "Why?" I'm like, "Because it doesn't matter." No, so
Marriage
like I
is
said,
It
I'm not
hard.
really
very
helps.
familiar with this. Marriage is hard. I'm not very familiar
Yeah.
with this. We do have a woman on our staff. Her name is Sola, not staff. I shouldn't say that. Part of our team, and she always jokes like she's Sunni, her husband's family is Shia, and they call their kids sushi, which I think it's such a cute
Yeah.
term. She's like, we're sushi kids, and we're
It is a cute
perfectly
term.
fine with that. So I
That's
think that's
awesome.
very, very cute.
Yeah.
But we
No,
actually have
no.
a question from somebody that says they're I'm not even sure if I'm saying this right, but Alawite or Alawite, and they want to
Alawite.
know if
Alawite.
this is a problem. Alawite. This person is Alawite, and he or she wants to know if this is a problem in America that you guys see.
What's an Alawite? Explain to me.
Alawite is
I
the
don't
sect
know.
of
I'm the wrong
Shiaism.
person to ask,
It's the
girl.
same sect as
Oh, then
it's the same sect as Bashar al-Assad in Syria.
Nuseris. Is that the same one? I'm gonna look it up because I
I
don't want to
think
give an
that's the same
answer
sect
that's
as Bashar.
uneducated.
And so, is it a problem in America? Is the question. And I think that's what we're trying to kind of gather together here.
Figure it out.
And I don't know, Freeney, if you can speak to
Oh,
it,
okay.
but while,
Yes, yes, yes,
yeah,
yes, yes, yes. Okay, I have to look it up. I was just make sure because sometimes things have multiple terms for the same thing, and I was like, let me just make sure it's the same exact thing that we're talking about. And I'm not talking about a different sect because I think within Shia Islam there's about if I remember correctly, maybe like 20 or 30 different subsects. So it's like you have to make sure, like, okay, we're talking about the same, because there's like Ismailis who are a whole different part, and within
whole
them they
different
have
breed.
like
Yeah.
different pieces. Yeah, it's very very like all over the place. But lobbies. The thing is, I think that's what happened with there's how when you see when people say that, oh, inshallah, or you say, you know Allah madad, like Allah help me. A lot of Shias will say ya Ali madad, which just means Ali help me. There is this subset within Shias that has started revering Ali above the Prophet. And like I said, in mainstream Shiism, that's a no no. Like, no, no. The Prophet is the Prophet. He has his pedestal that he will remain on and never be taken off of. And Ali is just second after him. Not the same, not equal. And even in his life, Imam Ali preached that, the best thing in the world is gone when first his father in law died, and then when his wife died. He was like, the two best things in the world are just gone, and I am incomplete. So that's how much he revered them. And there is this subsect of, I don't want to say Shias, but like Muslims that almost worship Ali next to Allah, which again is like, no, 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 bad, no, 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 no for us. Like, because if a mini history lesson, Imam Ali was killed while he was in sajda, in sujud. So it's like, well, who was he praying to if he was praying to himself? That don't make no sense, right? So he was killed in Sajda, which is the most, vulnerable place to be killed. You're in Sajda. You are talking to God. You're not, you're not even looking around. So he was killed in that state. So, and people are like, well, he should be revered as God. And we don't believe that. We're like, no, no. He is definitely someone who has divine knowledge and ability to perform miracles, like a mini prophet, but not a prophet, just an imam who has divine knowledge. So I know, like, there are some people here in our community as well who do follow this idea of Ali being a god or someone to be revered that highly. And I know, like, my family or the people my community kind of say, no, 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 doesn't fly.
So what I'm
Doesn't make
hearing
sense.
is that regardless of what the Alawi, what they believe, our take is this is Mommyingwhilemuslim. We are in America. You can be whatever you want to be
Mm-hmm.
in America. That's what's really
Yeah.
great about this country, right? But I
Yes.
think what we see with the Sunni Shia division in America, I always
Mm-hmm.
thought, to be honest, Faheen, that it was a lot better here than it is overseas. Because, yes, while my dad's generation, there was a lot of intermarriages with Sunni Shia, that kind of tapered off, especially when the
Mm-hmm.
migration happened to Pakistan after partition. Then it became
Yeah.
this big deal. Like there's the Sunni part of town, there's the Shia part of town. And when you were in Pakistan, like all my cousins, and there are 27 grandchildren. So we're first cousins, right?
Yeah.
And all
Yeah.
the Joffreys had to change their name, their last name, because in Pakistan there was so much anti-Shiism, you couldn't get into the right school, you
Mm-hmm.
couldn't get into the right job, so they all dropped it. And there's only a handful
Yeah.
of us that remain Joffrey. Obviously, those of us who were born and raised in the States kept it because it never mattered. Nobody cared, nobody knew.
Yeah.
So I always thought it was good. However, kind of like Zeba,
It
I had an
is. It
encounter
is
in
better
college,
here.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to kind of move into what you were talking about, how it became problematic. And, in college is when we all get our spiritual awakening and we all are like, I'm going to be back to the,
Mm-hmm.
the roots of Islam and I'm going to practice the tenets of my faith. But like Zeba, I had an interesting experience when I moved into the dorms for the first time. So my roommate and I, who grew, we grew up together, we knew each other. So we were moving and we're moving our stuff up and down the stairs because there's no elevators in the dorms. And so we go outside and there's this girl and her parents in tears and all her stuff is kind of like out there in the courtyard, like her bedding, linens, everything that you move into the dorm room. And she's crying, she looks so worried. And we recognized them as brown and they were speaking a language we understood. We're like, hey, can we help you? And they were like, oh, well, we were moving her into her dorm and her roommate's boyfriend's on the bed with her, and it was just like a big mess and they didn't know who they were moving in with.
Ugh.
You just randomly get assigned. And so they moved her out and they immediately took her stuff out of the room. They were like moving it in and just picked it up and moved it right back. They were like, no, you are not living with this girl. And she's crying because she's a freshman and she wants to, live in the dorms. And we were like, auntie, uncle, it's okay. They asked our names. So they kind of looked worried when my roommate gave her name. And then when I said my name, their eyes lit up. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, just move up. And so we get all of our stuff into our room. So this is the second time they've gone up and downstairs with big boxes, right? And they move her in and they're like, oh, what imambara do you go to? And I'm like, what's an imambara? You
Yes.
know? They're like, what do you mean? You've never been to imambara? You don't go? What kind of a hijabi are you? And I'm like, and I primarily wear black, and so then I was like, oh, we go to the same masjid. And then they're like, oh crap. But at that point, they were too tired to move her stuff again. But they looked even more worried than they had in the courtyard. So that was my first
Yeah.
experience as having kind of some anti Sunni sentiment going on. So, that was
Yeah.
my first experience in America where I realized that me being a Sunni is going to be problematic for what this was a very strong Shia family. And it turned out we had so many
Mm-hmm.
common contacts. So the parents had the issue. The little girl didn't have the issue because as it turned out, she was in love with the Sunni guy anyway that we knew. So we were like, girl, we're going to hook you up.
Ooh, did they have
So,
sushi kids? Did they have sushi kids? That's what I want to know.
it ended up not working because her parents really wanted her to marry Shia.
That's so interesting.
That
So I
happens.
guess, I mean, we have another question right now, which is, it seems like it's from an Ahmadiyya, which is another sect in Islam. This person says,
Yes.
Mirza Ahmed has taught us to treat everyone as a brother. Unfortunately, I can't see all of it. And the persecution against us in Pakistan, frankly, I don't know how to approach these people. Like, so we're having this frank conversation, all of us with different viewpoints. Like, how do you approach somebody in a conversation when you know that these things can, like you said, this woman might have moved out of your dorm room, right? If she thought you were Sunni, like, how do you approach a conversation
Oh,
from a
she did
positive point
eventually.
of view? She did. See, okay, there we go. So like how do you approach something from a positive point of view, that we have our differences, um, but that we can, come together and we can maybe even agree to disagree and still have an honest discourse and conversation with one another. What do you two think about that?
Can I
Do
address
you
the
want to go
Ahmadi
first, Uzma, or
question
should I go
first?
first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, with the Ahmadiyya, that's a completely different branch. It has nothing to do with Shiaism, correct, Faheen?
Mm-hmm. Totally different friend.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
they're a
um,
subset of ours, and then they've gone in a different direction.
oh, okay, I see.
Subset.
So the
Subset
question is
of a
specifically
subset of a
asking
subset.
about
It's like,
exactly. So it's like those Russian
yeah,
dolls, right?
rabbit
So,
hole. Yeah.
the question is specifically asking what to do about the oppression in Pakistan against Ahmadis. And I cannot stress enough, this
Oh,
is
got it.
Mommyingwhilemuslim, and our issues are Muslim American. So we cannot speak to the oppression that happens in any country or in Pakistan. And I don't think we're
Hmm.
qualified to speak on that. We think all oppression is wrong wherever it
No.
happens, but we cannot speak
All
specifically to
oppression
what's
is
happening in
wrong,
Pakistan.
and and I think when you mentioned, Uzma, that our parents knew different, or quote unquote back home, it's harder because I think they're over here. There is this system of, number one, justice, and then number two, like I said, if you drink chai and you like biryani, we're BFFs. That's it. We're gonna talk. I don't care what you're thinking or doing. We're gonna have chai and biryani. But back in a country that is so predominantly Muslim, I think the divisions really get highlighted. And because over there, a lot of people do get away with a lot of things, and
Hmm.
justice is kind of never served to many people, not just Sunni, Shias, Ahmadi. Like, justice is just not served for certain people. I think it just, the lawlessness kind of continues. My husband's cousin was killed in a target killing a year and a half ago. He had his wife and four kids left without a father, and he was
Oh my
only
gosh.
42, 43, outside his house. And it's in a very protected area, his house, but they found him. They killed him point blank. There's video out there of him being shot in the head and killed. And he was up and coming in politics, plus a very practicing Shia. So it became a double problem. And when he was killed, it hit the family because you hear about it so often. But I mean, I remember my husband was just distraught because, I mean, you can imagine, if any of you have a cousin, you grew up with your buddies. You're like, oh yeah, we grew up. This was, a bhai, and we had great times and memories. And suddenly that person has been killed for something that you would think, especially living here, should not be a problem. But over there, a lot of these things are still problems. And I know the government, I don't know how it works and how open they are, if they even condemn a lot of things. I mean, there's not much condemnation happening here either lately, but that's another point. I'm not getting into that point. No
Yeah.
thanks.
No,
Well, I
that's what
mean,
I was
so
going to
that
say. Miscarriages
well,
of
that
justice
begs the
happen
question,
everywhere. I mean, look at our streets right now.
Mm-hmm.
right?
Happens all the
And
time.
and that begs the
And that,
question that
Go ahead,
just
Saba.
the idea that
we
justice is not.
no, no, no. I'm sorry for the lag, ladies, but I just want to say, like, um,
That's
it,
okay.
it kind of begs the question with what we started to, like, does it actually matter here? And I'm saying this to you guys honestly. My kids don't even know. We don't talk about Shia, Sunni, Ahmadi. I mean, we just talk about,
Mm-hmm.
and I know it might not be politically correct, but we talk about we're just Muslim, and it doesn't matter because, quite frankly, regardless, we're supposed to help one another. And if you hurt one of my people, regardless of where I'm going to hurt as well. So, like, we're
Mm-hmm.
definitely not raising our kids to even think that way, to be very blunt with you. But I just want to know, like, our question, which we started with, does it actually matter?
In America,
I'll
being
answer that
Shia
first.
Sunni doesn't matter.
Yeah. Does it matter?
I'm going to say yes, it does matter to the people who practice it. Practice being the key word. There's plenty of Shias, there's plenty of Sunnis who, let's say, aren't practicing, studying. I'm not saying they're atheists, but they're just, let's say, I don't care, whatever. They're not practicing what each part of the deen is telling you. They are the ones who are like, you know what, it's fine. I can marry whoever. But like in my family where we do practice and let's say for example, if I'll just put myself on. If I let's say my sons grow up in this household where we do commemorate Muharram, we do my kids are named after my kids are, Hassan and Hussein. So like I'm like, yeah, pretty obvious like what you're supposed to be. And if they were to come to me and say I want to marry someone who's Sunni, I would be okay with it to the point that if that Sunni person respected this part of our faith. If, again, that same example I gave, if the person hates, Shiism and Shias and their family has taught them to not like our belief system, then that's going to be a problem, if not even for them because they're in love and they're like lost and working on hormones. It'll become a problem for their kids. And I cannot stress enough how many countless times I've seen this problem come up with kids because I've seen people who in that moment when they're just, running on, emotions and desires, they get married, they have a bunch of kids. I've seen people make deals. They're like, okay, any sons we have will be Shia, any daughters we have will be Sunni. And it's always that's just a fine line you're crossing. That's not gonna work. And so you're saying that in the same household, the mother's only gonna teach the daughters one thing, and the father's gonna teach the sons one thing. But as like that's just a slippery slope, and I've seen families break down over this. So again, it goes back to the idea: if you are practicing and you do hold this part of your faith to be important, you want, and let's say you're raising kids who practice the same faith as you want them to stick to that. I could care less if let's say like we tell the kids now, I'm being blunt here. We tell them we're like we don't care if your future wife is older, younger, black, Spanish, whatever, Shia, because it's going to be easy for you to kind of navigate that if you are practicing Shia. If you're not, then we failed anyways as parents, so whatever. Do whatever you want. But like we had to come to terms with that as well. We had to come to terms with that because in our Indian Pakistani culture, there is this institutionalized racism as well that dark is not pretty and whiter the better. So we had to, me and my husband's an immigrant as well, so we discussed this. We were like, are we okay if our kids choose someone black and bring them home and say I want to marry so and so, she's Shia? Yeah, fine, go ahead. When do you want the nikah? Today, tomorrow, let's go. So we had to have this conversation.
My daughter's only going to marry. My daughter only wants to marry a black Muslim. Like she's like, I want to go find me a black Muslim brother, and I'm like, okay. I know. I was like, okay,
that's
we're
fine.
good.
But there's plenty out like there. Go for it.
There's plenty. I'm like, she's like, I'm so happy. But no, the truth of the matter is, like, somebody just wrote, like, I'm not Sunni, I'm not Shia, I'm just a Muslim, and I believe in the Quran. It kind of does speak to kind of how I personally feel, which is so weird, right? Because my maiden name was Hussein and now it's Hassan. So like I'm literally this weird person because everyone just assumes that I'm Shia, and I'm just kind of like, I'm neither. Because for me, it was always like a political, and I could be wrong again, it was a political situation at a time and a place that I don't necessarily feel applies to today. That's just me personally. And I'm just like, I believe in the Quran, the 5 pillars, and this is just how I'm raising my kids. Like we don't have that political aspect of it. So like, I do believe that there's a portion of the population that is like that. And like me, that is kind of like, it won't necessarily matter, but it is a major sect in Islam. And I definitely, like Uzma says, we're starting our different points of views this month, and we definitely wanted to have you on the show and to explain your point of view. And I know a lot of people will be able to to find you in a different should you let everybody know like where they're going to be able to find you so that we can hear some more of your points of views and some more of your modern musings of a modern Muslim? Because I know that we're definitely going to want to be a little bit more detailed into what else you have to say, because I know we're running out of time right now, and we could probably talk about this. Like I said, this is a week-long webinar series and we're just touching the tip of it. So can you let our listeners know where they can find out a little bit more about you, and where they can listen to your podcast when you drop, and what channels you're on? Because I do know this is definitely a conversation that we can never do it justice, but to the extent that they can hear some more of your point of view, we'd love to be able to support you.
Sure. I'm on Instagram at the Mod Muslim, all one word. And then the podcast is called Musings of a Modern Muslim. It's on iTunes, on Google, Spotify, iHeart, Stitcher, and so many more. So, and I drop episodes every 2 weeks because I wish I could do weekly. Maybe one day I will, but it's just my brain capacity only works every 2 weeks. I'm like, for now, every 2 weeks. I just dropped a new episode this past Friday. And I'd like to do a lot of social issues, counseling, and just talk about those things. But I'm always open to talk about the tough stuff because taboo topics are fun. My goal in life is to get a fatwa against me. That's what I need. One of those, like.
Oh,
yeah. A fatwa against her, and that's it. I'm good.
I had one. By the time I was 24, I had a fatwa against me. So that's awesome.
Girl, I believe
so we're going to put
I've
all of
known
your
you since
contact
we
in
were
our show
kiddos.
notes. Yeah. So we're going to put your contacts in our show notes. And if anybody wants to continue to have this Muslim American identity talk, please, start a thread on our Facebook group, Mommyingwhilemuslim, all one word. And, Fadheen is on there too, so she can be kind of our resident expert. And any of our other mom sisters who happen to be Shia or identify as Shia, like, please step in because, this is not something that we can speak to, but I really appreciate you coming on because, what I didn't get to talk about was how I was super anti-Shia growing up. And it was going to college and praying next to very close friends who happened to be Shia and like, wait a minute, her arms and the rock and what, and she was somebody I respected so much. And, she changed me. And then it's major Sunni scholars who completely, by the age of 28, had changed my entire worldview. And that's why I believe, and I think it's okay for us to disagree on this. I believe it doesn't matter in America, but I think we can continue that discussion in our Facebook group, and I look forward to it. And thank you so much for coming on and having this hard conversation with us today.
No, it's fine. And I'm glad you mentioned a lot of Sunni scholars. They are a lot of allies. So there are allies, and I think the newer speakers and scholars are really trying to bridge that gap that, hey, we're different. We can still get along. We can pray next to each other. End goal is you believe in one God and the Prophet Muhammad is the last prophet. Yeah, we're good. We're friends.
Yeah. Why further subdivide an already divided community? It just doesn't make sense. We have to stand together or we all fall down.
Oh,
Thanks so much for joining us
a good way to
on
end,
our
girl.
episode today. And we'll catch y'all on another episode of Mommyingwhilemuslim. Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Assalamu alaikum.
Bye.